Greetings, Kings, from Bones in the Studio this time. I wanted to push out a quick video on an interesting topic that I have discovered and made some findings in regards to a very niche application of parts flexibility within the AR Lowers ecosystem of parts. Specifically, if you would be able to use a detent spring in lieu of a safety spring for your AR safety selector in the event that you maybe lose your safety spring or it breaks for some reason. I haven't really found a lot of people talk about this online. No videos discussing it or testing it on YouTube, and really a few posts on ARF or ARFCom or on Reddit that I've seen that kind of throw their hands up and say, maybe it would work. So I wanted to test that and show that how it works and if it's something that's viable to maybe do in a pinch to get your gun up and running for a short period of time in the unlikely event, but still possible event, that you lose or break your safety selector switch. So here I have the lower we will be working with today, as well as the safety kit, all components, the pistol grip, and of course the proper safety spring that comes from the factory and is mil spec. On the left here though, I also have a leftover parts kit, or leftover parts from a lower parts kit that has our item in question, which is the takedown spring. Now these takedown springs are installed at the rear and the front of the receiver to hold these takedown pins in place via applying pressure to a pin similar to this but a bit smaller and usually made of brass. These springs are of course very similar to our safety spring. However, they're a bit skinnier and just a little bit longer too. The reason why this piqued my curiosity is because of how similar these two springs are and the fact that a lot of these kits, these lower parts kits, will include an additional detent spring. They do that as a courtesy because a lot of these manufacturers know that these springs are the most common part that people will break or lose when installing them on an AR lower. It's very easy to break these or bend them or send them into the stratosphere with one miscalculation and you will never find them again. So they include a few extras usually. So it got me thinking, what if, for whatever reason, while servicing or building my AR lower, I lost my safety spring? Could I flex a detent spring into that role and still have a usable and safe lower? Well, we're going to put two of these together and show that you can, in fact, use a detent spring as a safety spring. So we'll go ahead now and install our safety with the proper spring, just as our control in our test. Drop that in there, facing downward, pointed at down. Now we will get our spring aligned here. Try to kind of show what that looks like for the camera. Walking it in a bit. Gonna get it aligned with the hole. It's giving me a little bit of difficulty here. Use this to guide it. There we go. And press it downwards. And since it's a nice Magpul grip, it has enough friction to hold it in place for me to grab my screw and not have to fumble around with it too much. And find the hole here. I think I found it. Be cautious here and kind of get this aligned a bit better. And then screw in our nut, or our bolt, our screw. Already has a little bit of blue Loctite on it. Hand tight. And we'll throw in our bottle of oil too. Okay, awesome. So, safety's in. It works perfect. It's a nice tactile click as I go from safe to semi. And of course, we'll make sure it works. Of course, nothing's happening when I am pulling the trigger and it's on safe. I go to fire. The hammer falls. I'll keep the trigger pulled. There we go, again. Then we'll go to safe. Nice reset, and I can't pull the trigger. So this works, and it is as you would expect to feel from a safety. Everything is functional. Now we will move on and install the safety kit, but with a detent spring instead of the one that is mil spec and meant from the factory. And so now I have an AR9 lower, which uses the same parts and the same process as the normal AR lower, and we will install our safety with the detent spring instead of the safety spring. The same process applies, however it is a little more tricky because the spring is quite a bit longer. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to, well, it actually went in pretty easy. I mean, I've done it a few times already, and our screw is already in there, but I have to hold it down because there's no pressure, or because there is pressure and this grip is not tight enough to hold the back that pressure without the screw. So we have it tightened. Now we're gonna give it a little extra, and let's see. Yep, works great. It actually feels really good, and it definitely functions and gives a pretty good but slightly different audible click with the actuation of the safety. Go back to our other lower. It is definitely a little bit quieter, a little bit of a different tone, and slightly less responsive, but definitely not super easy to press, and not like I would feel like it would easily come off safe when grinding against my kit. Now let's of course make sure it works. Of course we're on safe now. Nothing is happening. We go to fire, the hammer drops. We reset the trigger, hammer drops. Resetting one more time, going back to safe, nothing. All right, so as you can see, this definitely works. Now, would I recommend people do this and try to save a couple cents and install your safety with a detent spring? Absolutely not. I would not recommend you do this or keep this installed for very long, as it's a pretty cheap part to get, and why mess with something that's so simple yet so important like the safety on your rifle? But in the event that you needed to do this because you had damaged your spring or had lost it, it certainly does work. And in fact, in my recent video in which I was shooting out in the rain and showing off the poncho and showing why it was the only piece of wet weather gear you needed, this was actually what I was running in my AR-9 the whole time, and it worked flawlessly for me. So again, do with this information at your own risk. Stay safe out there, exercise good judgment, and I hope this was able to just at least arm you with some knowledge that might save you in a pinch in the event that you run into a situation similar to what I described. Thanks for watching, Kings. Keep your heads held high. Bones out. Getting good leverage. Oh man, it was